Hello, 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 and welcome to the Joy of Connection. And tonight I have the pleasure of bringing a lovely guest on, Pauline, and we're going to talk a little bit about something that we all need to talk about, but we often don't talk about unless we're in a dire situation, and that's money. And Pauline is an accountant, so we are coming more from an accounting perspective, but also just sort of asking her opinion on some of the things that we need to know about and don't always ask about. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the show Pauline Lewis. Hi, Pauline.
Hello, hi.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming onto the show. We really appreciate you being here. So, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you what I ask all my guests first. And my first question is, where are you from and where do you live?
I was born in Fulham, West London, and I'm currently living in Lewisham in Southeast London. So I'm a Londoner, born and
Yeah,
bred.
me too. I'm actually from Tottenham originally, North London,
Mm.
but spent my last stint in Archway. So,
Okay.
yeah, North London versus South London.
No, there's a divide.
That's right. That's right. And so tell me, how do you remember how did we connect? Where did we first meet? Do you remember?
I've met you at an event, at a conference, Teams Global conference. The very first time I met, I remember you did a presentation. Yes.
That's right. Good memory. And I was amazing, right? I did a phenomenal presentation. Am I right?
Yes, yes, you did. Of course, you did.
I love that. I love that.
Mm,
And so, our show is called The Joy of Connection, and it's about connecting people. And so,
mm,
I want to ask you a little bit about yourself because, as a relationship coach, I talk to people about self love and self care and what they do for themselves. So, when Pauline's not busy being an accountant, taking care of people, helping them grow their businesses, what do you do for Pauline? What do you do for self love and self care?
right. I think it's important to take time out. I like going to the park. I like being in nature. Actually, attended African spirituality course, 2 sessions during lockdown. It was really, really connecting me to nature. I
Right.
enjoy spending time with family and friends. I'm trying to get out and about and go to art events. I'm going to the Royal Academy of Arts exhibition, summer exhibition, which is normally quite in the summertime.
Mm.
Hoping to go to that this weekend.
No.
Go and see some films. I love the arts. I'm considering joining a drama group locally just to get that art because I think during lockdown people couldn't reconnect with others, especially to the arts and coming together and enjoying that time.
That's great. So, are you saying we might have a budding actress in our team
Uh,
group?
well, I'm not sure. I do like. I mean, I've missed all the black plays. I've missed everything about plays generally, not just recreating that lived experience of witnessing the theatre. I mean, I've spent my money, and if I had to choose between a cinema and the theatre, I've always liked going to the theatre for the live experience, people depicting their lives, their narratives, and that's how you learn about the history. It's real, it's raw, it's immediate. So I think being shut down, theatre addicts like myself, being shut away.
Yes, I am a theatre addict as well, and I went to see Tina Turner last week, and that was
Wow.
really good. However,
Mm,
the whole drama about having a COVID passport and the this and the
mm,
that, oh gosh. And the thing is
mm,
that they didn't even really check. They just sort of looked down. If you had something that looked like whatever it was
mm.
to look like, they just let you through. So that's
Right.
it. But you didn't hear it from me. But anyway,
Mm. Okay.
it's great that creative is back. I know you're saying
Yeah.
it's such an outlet. For me
Mm,
as well, art is really important and all those things. So I get you. I totally understand where you're coming from. That's
okay.
wonderful. That's wonderful. So tell us a little bit about being an accountant. I mean, just before you go into it, I just want to say that I think when most of us talk about being an accountant or think of an accountant, we think of somebody very serious, very straight laced, knows everything right about money. And you have a personality. So tell us a bit more about why you became an accountant. Are you just in love with numbers, or did you fall into it? Tell us a bit about your job.
I started off doing what it was called admin, and I've always been interested in helping people manage their finances in terms of seeing money as a tool. And
Mm,
I decided to qualify. I paid for my own course to enter the profession, and as a way of doing that, I always felt giving back was important. So when I was studying, I was supporting, being a voluntary treasurer for many community organisations, a Saturday school, because I was trying to understand how do you relate being a professional, studying anything, and give back to your community in some
yes,
capacity. For me, I
yeah.
kept that at the forefront of what I was doing, and even the clients I like to work with come from the social enterprise sector because they're
Okay.
giving back, and I understand that tradition of giving back and how giving back you empower others, whether through your skills, your knowledge, and I think that's key for community empowerment.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And so, did you become an accountant straight after school, or did you have another career before?
No, I just basically did admin for a few years, working mainly in admin, doing invoices. I suppose I'm very organized, so maybe processing invoice was a way of learning systems. So I suppose I worked my way up from the bottom in a way, and I
Mm,
found, in terms of supporting managers or individuals to manage their budget, getting that financial literacy was that's the aspect I enjoy.
I like
So
that.
it's just been a learning curve and just taking advantage of different opportunities that were presented to me.
Wow. So, would you say that you're good with money yourself?
I try to,
Or
they
you
say accountants are the worst managing money, and
That's
I
why I
think
asked you.
I'd have taken risk and I've lost money, but I think it's just part of investment. Being you asked about business people, they would say they've invested a part of the learning curve. So for me, I try to manage my money as best as I can. So
Yeah.
I'm not really, I don't want to go into all my personal finances, but
Oh,
I try to manage what I have and, as the best as I can. And that's something I've always done. And maybe have financial goals. So to save towards thing, if I want something, I'll have to save towards. I've got that kind of old fashioned mentality of doing
yeah.
that. I learned that from my father. He wanted anything, he saved for it. He didn't take out loans or anything. So I'm quite old fashioned in what I'm doing. Compression is debt to credit society. That some of it
Yeah.
holds like a chain around our neck sometimes.
Yes.
It kind of
Yes.
holds us back. Mm,
Yes. Well, I lived in the States for many years, and it's a huge credit society.
yes.
It's almost frowned upon not to have credit. It's the
Mm,
exact
mm,
opposite of being in here. So
mm,
I had to sort of relearn how to use money and accept it, even though now I'm still card fanatic in terms of debit cards,
mm,
whatever. I don't even like
mm,
cash. But
mm,
time when I would charge everything. We'd even charge our bills and then
mhm,
pay them off.
mhm,
So
mm,
it's a totally different society, but that's
mhm,
great to know. Okay, so you're an
mhm.
accountant that's actually good with their own money, so that's nice to hear.
We have to be. I think, because we're going to have to manage help other people's with manage their own money as well, their businesses or their budgets. So because it's
Yeah,
the understanding. I think it's the understand being able to relate that and know the challenges that they face. So it's
yeah.
yeah.
But you say that, but then I know doctors and nurses that have the worst health, the worst eating habits, the worst sleeping habits,
Oh
but yet
no.
they're dictating to you every day what you should and shouldn't do. So it would be interesting to,
It's
if you said,
interesting.
well,
There's poor accountants as well. There's all different types of accountants. Accountants who are not very, in terms of managing their money, are very poor and
yes,
very disorganized. So it's all different. Our personalities. I think you bring your personality to whatever you do and how you live your life, whatever job you have, whatever business you run. So. Mm,
yeah. So tell us a little bit about, we've just gone through COVID and
mm,
there's been a huge impact on people in terms of mental health, and everyone's sort of focused on that. But people
mm,
haven't focused on the money aspect. In fact, I think on the news they were saying universal credit, for example, it was going to be
mm.
taking money back from people now
Yes,
after
I know.
giving it out, which,
Mm,
and so that shows that a lot of people must be still struggling financially because
mm,
obviously Some people were on furlough. The furloughs come to an end.
Mm,
Some
mm,
people were working, lost their jobs. So, what kind of impact have you seen as an accountant to your clients, for example? We're going to stop
mm.
flying around here.
Okay. I've recognized that some clients or in the clients have really struggled during COVID. I mean, if they were a modest business, they may have had fewer clients coming to them. They may not have been able to manage their cash flow. Their cash flow has been very low. Some of them didn't qualify for the government schemes because they didn't keep proper records or had insufficient profits to qualify. So it depends on the individual and their businesses. So we are coming out. We've come out of the recent lockdown, and the furlough has had an impact. I think the government said there was 1 million people on there. So it is about, I think, adapting. They talk about the new normal or whatever, pivoting your business, but I think in this time is about adapting and having support around you. So if someone's lost their job, what support have they got around them to assist them? And it could be maybe emotional. Someone can help them out financially. And the universal credit's gone down by £20. And it had an impact on families. So I think it's creating that support network around. I think almost like going back to how the Caribbean people used to be many years ago in the 50s and 60s, having that support, especially if something happens to one person, the family can lift them up, the extended family, close friends. I think we have to have that network around us and not just be on our own. I think if you have a network around you, somebody can give you food, somebody can perhaps give you a meal. I think we have to go back to those. And even the working class people used to do that back in the old days. Um, English working class. I think you have to recreate that network which we've lost over the last 40 years as an
Yeah.
emotional support. Could give you a meal, help you out with your children, pass down clothes. And there's nothing wrong with that because those networks held those people, help them with their survival because they weren't necessarily, it's one way. And I think that, I know it's not patronizing anybody, but you do need
No.
to build good networks. And the Caribbean white working class people did that back in the 60s and 70s to support them.
I like that you use the word network because I think back in the day we would have said community because we did
Yes,
have lots of communities, but I
yes.
think depending on the group or the minority or
Mm,
that community may be stronger or weaker now.
mm,
And I think
yes,
a lot of communities have become much more fractured as we move further away from home, living
yes.
abroad, living in different cities.
I know.
I know my
Right.
family suffered that. We're between the Caribbean, America, and the UK, so
Mm,
we're quite
right.
fractured
Yeah.
in that way. So we
Mm,
look to our friends for support because we don't have
yes.
that immediate family right there.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mm,
important word. I like that. And you struck me with something that you said before about keeping records.
mm,
I think I'm good at keeping records. Are they always in the right place? No. But if you ask me for something, in fact, I
mm,
was just dealing with my company taxes the other day, and the
mm,
accountant said, "Oh, I need this document," and I said, "Oh, I don't know where it is, but I can find it," and I was able to find it because I just save everything. But that's really important, isn't it? It's one of the important things with money, being able to track where your documentation is as you need it. Would you agree with that?
I'd agree to keep everything in a safe place, even having a folder, a wallet, or something, just to get it's a discipline.
Mm,
And reviewing your records from time to time because you can set goals around those records. You can say even now with the lockdown and furlough
yeah,
being removed, or even anticipating where if you want to save money in the future, do you want to save £10, £15? And by reviewing what you've spent to date, keeping the receipts, looking at your bank account on a regular basis, you can
mm,
perhaps switch. It's a good time now to even look at some of the expensive items where you're overpaying. Are
yeah,
you paying too much for your broadband? Can you get a better deal? And some of us are tied into, I know people say, and some people are very good and they find the time to switch providers, suppliers, and get a better deal. They're constantly doing that as a way to save money. And in this climate now, I mean, it's a good idea to look at that in terms across the board of what your providers are.
absolutely. And I think, especially with this energy crisis that's happening right now, A lot of people are going to have to shop for a new provider,
Yeah.
even though they may not have been necessarily looking for one, but it might start a good practice. Same with
Mm,
banks. I just got fed up personally
mm,
with a lot of the banks that I was dealing with, and I've moved
mm,
to mostly online banking. I still have one high street bank, but
mm,
I had a business account where they were charging me every month, and then I
mm.
found that online banks didn't charge. And
Right.
so,
Okay.
yeah, we've got
Mm,
somebody in the audience, Valerie, saying she agrees with you, Pauline. Assume she's talking about energy because Valerie works really
mm.
closely with Utility Warehouse.
All right.
So,
Okay.
and I'm also a big fan of Utility Warehouse. It works. I've been with them for about 8 years, and they
Wow.
review your
Okay.
bills and they come back to you every year and sort of say you've spent this much, and you could
Right.
be saving more by doing this, or
Mm,
you've overpaid and we've lowered it. So
mm,
I got
mm.
money back
And
this.
we can also look at some of these, we tie ourselves into these direct debits, and we can kind of like, you sign up to a service, you realize that they're going to charge you for the next year, the annual renewal, and we can cancel that beforehand because all these habit changing and being aware of what we can reduce our expenditure, and then what we spend, and it accumulates over a period of time.
So could you
Yeah.
explain that? What were you saying? So if you're paying a direct debit,
Sometimes you get tied into subscriptions and direct
yes,
debits. They encourage you to sign up to different services, and you're
mm,
signed up to them, and that you forget about the renewal period. It could be anything at all. It's done in a way to get you to. It's a ploy, isn't it? And they
yes,
get your money, and before you know, you forgot to cancel, and you're tied into something for the next year. There's
yeah,
all these things that are happening out there. Your credit
yeah,
card, can you pay? Not the minimum, but the most of the repayment. These time, can you pay more on your mortgage? Repayment. All these things you could do to reduce your,
yes, yes,
pay more and have less to pay in the future. Pay more now and have to less to repay in the future.
later,
And we
yeah.
don't think about it because we're so tied up in the day-to-day living. And we could save on just making slight adjustments.
Yeah. And you know what? I was having a chat with a friend today saying that, sometimes you get lured into the marketing or the sexiness of, or the desire of something. So, for
Mm,
example, I have a car that it's on PCP. I guess it's kind of leasing. I actually
mm,
don't even know what the term really means. And
mm,
um, I decided, oh, I'm gonna buy the car. I'm gonna go and buy the car. And a friend of mine said, oh, go to AA. And I said, AA does loans on cars. I said, yeah, 2%. And I was like, 2%. When I looked at what I was paying, I almost jumped out the window because I
mm,
was so in, even if they told me it was 20% on the day, I probably wouldn't have heard it because I was in love with this car and I was going to
mm,
get this car and it didn't matter what anybody had to say. But then
mm,
when the reality of the bill came through the window, you're like, oh,
mm,
what I signed up
okay.
for?
Mhm,
And
mm,
so it's what you're talking about. You get caught up in that,
mm,
signing that dotted line and not reviewing it, not questioning it,
mhm.
just go with it because you feel like you're tied to
Excuse me.
something. So that's a really important point that you've brought up. Yeah.
And then even shopping, sometimes you really need the item. You can just walk away and come back. When let's say not to shop when you're hungry or something kind of that line when you're
Yeah.
tired because you're more likely to be pressurized to buy something by a sales assistant or avoid a sales assistant when you're in the shop and they come up to you and say, I'm fine,
Yeah.
engage. All the ploys. And I think people are more cautious now with their spending, how
Yes.
much they're spending, the frequency of spending. I think it's gone down. As I think people working from home as well. As I commute, sometimes I do commute to work, but it's just because you're not commuting, not spending as much because if you're
Mhm.
traveling, you will spend more. You go
Yeah.
lunchtime, you're going with your colleagues. So I think, but then there's a downside to the small shops that rely on commuters traveling to
Yes.
work.
Yes. Yes. That foot traffic that they're not seeing
Mm,
as much anymore. Yeah. And you just made me think about something. Do you have any tips for people around, we're coming into the Christmas season and
right,
people have not had a Christmas last year as far as they're concerned. So
right.
I think I was in Argos on the weekend and picking
Mm,
up a heater because my heat had gone. And
mm,
there was somebody buying a tree, and I was just like,
mm,
October 3rd, buying a Christmas tree? Wow.
mm,
So I'm wondering now if people are just going to go all out and go crazy because they didn't have a Christmas
mm,
before, or if
right.
they're still going to err on the side of caution
Mm.
they don't know if they're going to have a job or not, or
Yes.
they have a job but they're barely getting by. I just,
Mm.
what are your thoughts? Do you think people are going to be a bit more cautious? From just your opinion, of course.
I think with the uncertainty in the economy at the moment, there is a lot of caution and anxiety, and people are probably holding on to their money. They're worried about their jobs, particularly if they're contracting or their business is readjusting, or they're worried about their business going bust. So there's a lot of uncertainty around making decisions. And obviously, with family time, spending money at Christmas, it is important because it's not just Christmas, it's people coming together, being with their family, buying gifts to their children, their loved ones. So it's a balance between the two. And obviously, mental health, being with others is important. Christmas is a time for celebration, more or less, for people coming together, all generations of a family come together, and people are not going to give that up. They want to spend time with their family and enjoy that. But on the other side, they'll be worrying about the new year and what that brings.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like, I can't even remember, time is just going so quickly. So they're erring on the side of caution as well, because they're wondering in the new year what will happen. And there's lots of uncertainty in the economy. There's no sense of direction, I would say. The government says one thing, and nobody knows. I think it's just that living in that kind of void. I don't know. I was going to say it sounds dramatic when I've said that, but yeah.
But should we worry about what the government says? I mean, the government's going to say what they want us to hear and know.
Right.
Should we not
Mhm.
just have a steady course anyway of the way
Yeah.
we live and live the way we should be living, and just not going
Right.
above and beyond? Because they'll tell us, oh, stamp duties down, oh,
Mhm.
energy prices are rising. I mean, the media started that
Mhm.
whole crazy frenzy by saying there
Mhm.
were no lorry drivers and
Yes.
no petrol, no fuel. And there's fuel.
Mhm. Yes.
It may be going up in price, but there's plenty of fuel. But they
Yeah.
started a frenzy.
Yeah, and I
So if
think that whole thing about supply and demand is going to just obviously will raise prices, won't it? If you've got a restricted supply, it will push up in the economics. It will push up the prices. So people are worried about rising prices. The national insurance has gone up, has increased. People are worried perhaps about the increases in tax. Perhaps business. We don't know if a corporation tax will go up, because we've just been bailed out. I mean, most of the obviously furlough has to be paid for. All the money the government has paid out to employees to bail out different industries, sectors. It has to be paid for by rising taxes. That is just how an economy works. So I
yeah,
think people are worried about how will impact them. If you're going to lose your job, you've gone all in a very tight budget. People are worried about if taxes increase, how the council tax increase in 2020 next year, 22, 23, will that increase? So people are worried about the impact of taxes, rising prices. And I don't think that's ever really happened where we've got the twofold effect of both rising prices and rising taxes. And that could decimate some people's budgets and take people's businesses out. And I think I don't remember a time in terms of had that happening, because and it's a worrying time as well.
So, would you say for people that are thinking about starting a business, that they should really be thinking about how they're going to ride that wave? Because it seems like anything that's online probably stands a chance if you have an online
Yeah.
business, because a lot of
Mm.
people are moving in that direction. But if
Yes.
you're trying to open up a little mom and pop store,
Yeah.
it might be time to rethink or get some
Mm.
advice, right?
Right.
I mean, where
Um,
should someone go for advice if they're thinking about opening a business? Do you know anything about
there's
that?
there's a lot of local business advice hubs and business advisors. I think there's the London Business Hub, obviously unique to London, and
Yeah.
obviously there'll be similar organisations in other cities.
Mm.
So it would be a getting advice locally. People can Google local business advice, free business advice. There's free information up on the internet. They can look for business support to assist them. But with business, I would say um, get all the information that you need, attend the courses, find a mentor or work with somebody who's ahead of you in that particular business. And online is a very good way of starting a business. But then you have to consider your market. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. Who are you selling to? as well, using social media. And it does require a lot of time. It isn't something that business is not something that can be done overnight.
Exactly.
It takes time, and it takes a lot of time to find the right audience and do a lot of research. And if you just come from the background just working, it does take time to develop that business acumen and going to go out there and get the sales and the customers that you need for your business to
Yeah.
survive.
Yeah. Good point. Thank you. Really good points there. And, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because as a relationship coach, I talk to my clients about all kinds of relationships. People always assume it's about the relationship you're in, but I talk to people about the relationship with themselves, the relationship with others, and many times their relationship with money comes up. So I wanted to ask you, money seems to bring up uncomfortable feelings and emotions for many people, and I wanted to know, why do you think that might be?
Um, I would say it depends how they view money, how they've been brought up with money, who has been the role model in their families with money. So it doesn't necessarily mean you find a lot of footballers, they may have grown up without any, surrounded by people who haven't had much money. But when they become successful, they don't know how to manage their money. Because I think with money, how do I say it? It's a means to an end. It could be people, look, I get a job, I'm going to work in a business. It's a means to an end. But there's people who are consumed with money, the lifestyle, the extravagant lifestyle at the other extreme. But I think if you manage your income with support or with the understanding of your relationship with money, how do you feel it? Do you love it? Are you consumed with it? Or you just work with it and manage it the best way you can? It's almost like it's your
Mhm.
understanding of money, your belief system around money
That's
plays a part. Yes.
that's
And it
right.
is the belief system, how you believe it. It's just a means of an end. Does it support your family? Gets you food. You save some for the future generations in your family. It's how you relate to it. I
Yeah,
think it's building that, and it takes time to build that relationship. It
yeah.
sounds strange when I'm saying it, but
No,
in a
no,
way to how you utilize it, how you relate, how you see it, what color it is, what meaning does it have to you? Is it significant in your life? Is it a small part of your life in terms of how it looks after you in your family?
mhm,
Are you driven to be successful with lots of money? Are you a goal getter? Are you ruthless in how you want money? Do you seek money? Do you live for money? It all depends. It's different shades and colors for individuals.
yes, and that's really important. I mean, I feel like I have a really healthy relationship with money, and
Mm,
I don't, obviously every once in a while I'll be like, oh my God, I'm broke or whatever, but I'm not.
mm,
I tend to,
mhm.
when I least expect it, it will come from somewhere else. Just when I'm
Right.
thinking, oh my goodness, what's going to happen, and then
Mm,
it always appears, whether it's I open a drawer and there's money, somebody calls me and said, oh, remember I borrowed da 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 da, here it is.
mm,
It always
okay.
happens.
Right.
I usually do Airbnb at my home, and it was dead. And then
Mm,
all of a sudden, when it opened up in July, I have been blocked
right.
solid, to the
Mm,
point where I'm just like, I need a break. But,
mm,
trying to catch up for, almost 2 years of no income.
mm,
So,
right.
but I've always had a good relationship. And I remember when I was meeting with my coach, I said to her, I think I have a strange relationship with money. And she said,
Mm,
why is that? I said, well, I don't really stress about it. I just use it, save a little, spend a little.
mm,
It
mm,
always, money
okay.
always comes back to me. And she was like, well,
Yeah.
that's a healthy relationship. That's not an unhealthy
Mm,
relationship. And I was like, really? She's like, yes, it's a very healthy relationship. So
okay.
it's really how you feel about it, and um, how you see it and how you treat it. Because I think if you take
Mm,
money and you think that, oh, it's just for buying cars and flashy houses, flashy,
mm,
it's what is your intention for the money? What is the
mm,
purpose you have for money is really
exactly.
important. So
Mm.
what do you think we can do to develop a healthy relationship with money if we don't have one already?
Um, I would say go back to the beginning. Go back and really understand your values with money. Even to go back and say, what is the value I have with money? Is it something that I need to learn how to work with? Is it something I need how to understand? Do I need someone to support me with it? Is it
Yes.
something that, how, what's the purpose of it in my life? Is it a
Yeah.
spiritual relationship? Is it creative? Is it just something that's hardcore in a sense that it's just something I go and pay my bills with? Or is it something that I can see in a way that enhances people's lives? I'm a philanthropist. Am I willing to donate to my community? Do I have a loving relationship with it? Like I feel at peace with it. So it's an individual choice. It's all everybody's relationship with money is unique, and sometimes I think it's just been it's just like they said, it's like a means of exchange,
Mm,
the store of value, all the economic terms for it. But I think for individuals, it's about their own unique relationship. And it takes
mm,
time. If you had a poor relationship with money, is to perhaps to sit down and reassess what it means to you, what has happened to you in the past that has perhaps brought you into a position where you're in debt, or something terrible has happened to you, but to pause and think, reflect, or get somebody to support you, maybe a financial coach, or somebody who's had a good experience with money, but not patronize you, and
mm,
restart that journey, reunite that love, or that not love, but that kind of care and understanding in terms of how you relate to money. And because money is a reflection of you. I think
mm,
sometimes what happens in your life and how with money is a reflection of what's going on inside in you. I don't want to sound patronizing. A lot of
no,
trauma could extend in other ways. It extends not only in probably the relationships, your personal relationship, your lifestyle, your relationship with money. So I
relationship
think
with
what's
me,
happening
exactly.
inside of you,
Yes.
relationship, money is just one area of all that your life, your relationships with whoever, your loved ones. It's
Absolutely.
all an extension of that, and money has to be seen as part of that area of your life. So if you're at
Absolutely.
peace with money, money just comes and flow. You can lose money, you can love somebody and give them all your money and sometimes there's stories where people have had success, had a business, and they've lost everything, and say, okay, because it's just money, it's just been a means to an end for me to achieve X, Y, and Z. But I can lose my house, I can lose everything, and I can start again. And the ability to say it was just money, it was a means to end, and I can go out there and start all over again. I've known people who say, I'm going to start right at the bottom and rebuild what I had before because it's only a means to an end. It was part of my journey of where I got to. And then
Mm.
somebody else, they'll lose everything and they will just kill their whole family out. There's been a case, I can't remember, years ago, because they lost their business, because it's their relationship with money and what is associated with. Yes.
I've also found that when people are like this with money, they're really tight, they're counting every penny. I
Mm,
often say that they're the ones that are continually struggling because they've
mm,
created that sense of fear around money. So
mm,
everything is,
yes.
I've got to be so careful. Da, 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 da.
Mm,
So it really is about your relationship with it. And
mm,
Valerie in our audience said, learn to budget. Um,
mm.
I think that's a great, great comment. Learn to budget, but if somebody wants to learn, what's the best way? Is it taking an accounting course? Is it going to your Citizens Advice Bureau? Like, what would one do to learn how to?
Well, budget is part of it, but I'm coming back to the if you can budget, if you understand your relationship first of all with money, how you feel about it, and budgeting would be something like, okay, then I'm get this amount of I'm receiving this amount of money each month, and I'm going to allocate how I'm going to spend a proportion or percentage on buying, paying for my rent, looking after my children, paying for my utility bill. So you actually know how much is coming in, how much you're going to spend
Yeah,
each month, each week on a daily basis. So basically part of the record keeping. But it takes time to build that discipline. It's about that discipline, recording it on a spreadsheet, in a
yeah.
book, and you're doing it on a regular basis and reviewing it. Yes,
I'm
so that's
reviewing
part of
it. I
yes,
think
reviewing it and actually seeing how much did you actually spend. Did you spend what you intended? Yes.
Yeah, and as Eva's saying here, mindset and money is such an important relationship, and it really
Mm,
is. It is the mindset around how you treat money. And I
mm,
really like what you said there about, reviewing it, because the thing is that we can write everything down and never look at it again. So that's just as useless as not
yes.
writing it down in the first place.
Mm,
But
yes.
reviewing it even month to month and just seeing, oh, well, my expenses went up that much. What happened? Oh, I went on holiday. That makes sense. But oh, I
Yes.
had an issue with my car. So maybe if I look over a year, expenses that I didn't expect, maybe there's £100 on average a month for
Mm,
expenses. So I know now for next year, I need to have a kitty of put
yes.
aside for unexpected expenses.
Yes.
So should I need it? Yeah.
Mm.
Even though I'm
But I
giving all
think
this,
once you,
doesn't mean I follow it.
yeah, I think it's just getting in the doing it on a regular basis. So you're understanding where you're spending your money, and you'll be able to make better choices. For instance, it's okay that I'm going to record the money I receive and the money that I spend for 6 months. You'll
Yeah.
get an idea of where you're spending too much, where you need to cut back, do you need to save. And then you obviously, like you mentioned before, you're creating a contingency, you're saving for unexpected um, for emergencies, anything unexpected that happens, and then you're less likely to go and take out a loan or extend your credit card, or go on, or,
Go over
have
the
an
credit
increase your
limit.
overdraft. So
Yeah.
it's about, I suppose, managing that money that you
Yeah.
receive as best as you can. And I think sometimes it's just finding the time to do that on a regular basis. And sometimes even looking at your bank statements could be just as useful, reviewing that as well in conjunction with your budget, what you spend on your debit card, what comes up with your bank account, reviewing that. And you can look by month on month. You see a trend where you're spending too much. Have you been shopping too much, or have you been, overspending on areas that doesn't fall within your budget?
Yeah, too many takeaways. That's something that eats away at your money and you wouldn't even realize it, right? You're ordering in every night. And with all of this Uber Eats and Just Eats and
I
Deliveroo,
know.
so easy to just do
Yeah.
that and not even think about it until the end of the month. Like,
Yes, but that's the symptom of being inside a lot. I think when you're inside a lot and you just that lockdown, it's natural for people. Okay, people can cook, but that you're just sitting inside all the time, you become tired. So there was a tendency for people to pick up the phone, and because
just
it's just the
order.
nature of human beings. Yeah, you can cook and then you're just so tired. If you're working from home, oh no, it's just easier sometimes to get takeaway for the family. It's just something just happened because of human nature of being
And
locked
change
inside.
the
So
pace, because if you're cooking and eating every single night, you're like, okay, we can't go to a restaurant in lockdown,
yeah,
but we
exactly.
can order something in, you
I
know.
know, I know. So
So,
it
yeah.
is a difficult one.
And Eva also made another comment here. What is deciding to live on 90% of what you earn? What if, I'm not sure of the question, Eva, is it what if you're deciding to live on 90% of what you earn? I think that's what she's saying.
Right,
If you're still online, send us a bit more clarification on that question. We'll come back to that.
right.
I do have another question for you, though. Going back to what we were talking about, how we treat money, and you mentioned, thinking about a legacy for our future generations. Speaking of that, how can we make sure our children are money wise?
Well, you have to be very practical. If you're saying to manage your money to your children, are you yourself being the role model? Are you managing? Are you as a parent managing your money and not being frivolous with it? Because children learn by what they see and observe. That's the parents are the great teacher of their children. So it's about instilling those values, the relationship they have with money. We live in a very consumer society. We've got the Instagram, social media, promoting products, celebrity culture. Not I'm against it, but we have the celebrity cultures there for a reason. Young people, young women to spend, spend, spend. They promote products. So it's very, I'm not being ageist, but it's different from when I was younger, because that is basically to drive them to spend their money at a very young age, when they
Yeah,
should be trying to, instill some I suppose money management practices. And then they've got the student loans to think about if they're university students, and that's going to impact a lot of young, has impacted a lot of young people in terms of getting their first job, being able to get a mortgage. So the generation of young people that are growing up, they're still living at home with their parents when they would have got their own property or started off on the property ladder, which a
yes,
lot of older people would have been able to enjoy. So they would have, so times it's more difficult, and they're not going to be the generation that will work, for instance, in an organization like a local authority for 20, 40 years. So it's just going to be very different for them. So there's going to be more. They've got to be. It's very different. So management will be probably different for them. They probably might have to do a lot of strategic way of managing their money. So in terms of managing their money, like saving more, I would
Mm,
imagine saving more because they're more likely to be made more have not erratic employment, but they won't have that, maybe have more fixed, more contract type of work as to permanent work. So we don't know what the nature of employment would be, and
mm,
save having businesses, and so there'll be more requirement to save more, have more of a contingency. That's what I predict for young people. So it's really key for
mm,
money management for them. At the same time, when they're being sold so many products through Instagram, there's a balance between the
mm.
two. So it's going to be a really strong mindset because they've got things they can't acquire at a younger age where they used to, get their property at a certain age. It might be later, and
Yes,
they're competing for jobs as well as graduates. So there's a lot more pressure on young people, I would say, than compared to the old, not say
mm,
older, but what we were able to have advantage of properties,
yeah,
mortgages at an earlier age. They might face some difficulty, I would imagine, and
yes,
they're heading for, a lot of them are heading for a very uncertain in a certain world now.
yeah. It's a
I
good
don't want
point.
to sound depressing, but it's just a,
Oh,
you know,
so it's
there's very
reality,
different. The
isn't it?
young people, don't, people like coming towards retirement now. I feel it's going to be a lot tougher, but how they manage their money and get guidance at a younger age, and being able to
Mm,
make more decisions, I suppose maybe longer term decisions, in
yes,
terms of when they want to get their first property, they're settling down, getting married, having children, all the
yes,
financial aspects of that, and having the money coming in as well. There's a
yeah,
lot for them to think about in
yeah,
terms of decisions they make. Yes.
yeah. So Eva's come back with this question, which is really, really interesting one. So she asks, is it possible for you to try to live on 90% of what you earn and then save 10%? Can this become habit and start changing the mindset, the relationship with money? What do you think about?
Um, that's possible to do. Live on 90% that you earn and save 10%. It's up to the individual what they want to do. If that's something that's achievable for them and they feel comfortable with doing that, they can do that, yes. And then that 10% is like a savings for them or an investment for them.
Yeah.
But always, I think when you're doing something, to have a goal in mind. Because if you have a goal, say you want to buy your own property, you've got to save X amount for a deposit. And what is your motivation behind that goal? Is your motivation strong for you to want to strive towards that goal? I think in a society that we live in where we're easily distracted, how strong is that motivation to say, I'm going to save £10,000 for a deposit on a property? How strong is that? So
Mhm.
sometimes it can be the percentage of your salary or the motivation of that particular goal. I need 10K, whatever it is, whatever drives that motivation for that goal or that holiday or that I'm going to get married and spend, pay for that wedding. What is that goal that you want, as opposed to taking out a loan? I'm anti loans, but what is the goal that's going to drive? How motivated are you? I
Yes,
think
yeah,
sometimes it's the goal and the percentage. I think everybody's different because you can say 10%. I'm going to say, but am I realistically going to do that 10%? Or am I going to think about the goal? So everybody's different. That's fine if somebody says 10% of their salary as a way to drive them. But sometimes the goal, how much do I want this? How
mm,
much do I'm going to be driven to get that and stick to that? And when things go wrong, how can I actually what's the word, realign myself to that goal when I maybe have lost my job, or the business has gone down and I still want to get my property. How committed I am to go realign myself to that goal and keep going, because sometimes I think it's goal driven and motivation driven.
yes, yes. I love that. Well, you've definitely motivated me tonight. I can tell you that much. Giving us some really, really great tips and food for thought. I mean, there's a lot of information there. That's really great. So again, can I just ask you, is there anything else that you'd like to impart with the audience tonight?
I would say, in this uncertain time, I know things are difficult. I know people are anxious, and I think it's really important to get the support you need from your close ones, and be use the skill about okay, if you have a job or you have a business, if you can save some money, put something aside for a rainy day, or the expression they used to say. They used to say about you need 6 months salary if you're going to be unemployed, but anything is better than nothing. And I think because it's all that uncertainty and people are struggling, because
Yeah.
sometimes I have a job, I'm able, but the other side people don't have anything,
Mm.
and they're going to the food bank, or people have lost their businesses, they've had to go, and it's the ones that are struggling, um, you know, to get money to feed their children, to be aware of that is happening out there, and to support others if you can, in any way that you can.
Oh, very gracious, Pauline. Thank you so much for sharing your opinions, your thoughts, and your expertise. So thank you for joining us tonight, Pauline. I'm going to wrap it up there. And if you could hang out in the green room for a few minutes with the producer, and I'll be back to chat with you at the end of the show.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you. It's amazing. Thank you. So, everyone, that was really thought provoking. And as Valerie just said, thank you, Pauline. Difficult times ahead and great advice. Yeah, I think there was a lot of learnings. And if you want to reach out to Pauline and learn more, check out her website, which is finactiveuk.com. Finactiveuk.com. And so, yeah, I hope we've all gotten some tips. She made me think about a few things there. So, advice is around us. It's just seeking it sometimes, and maybe looking at people that you admire that are doing well, and seeing if they have any good tips. Um, Always getting advice is never a bad thing. So I'm going to love you and leave you tonight. It's been great talking about finances, something we don't talk about enough, but should talk about. And as I always say, be joyful, be connected, and shine your light. Good night. Thank you.